My name is Evelyn Harper, and I'm 41 years old. For a long time, I believed love worked like an investment account. You put in enough time, enough effort, enough sacrifice, and eventually, inevitably, it would pay you back in loyalty, respect, and belonging. I was wrong. Very wrong. I used to think that if you showed up consistently, fixed what was broken, paid what needed paying, and loved people even when it was inconvenient, they'd eventually see you as family. Instead, I learned that some people will gladly live inside the house you built and still tell you it was never yours to begin with. This is the story of how 3 stepchildren taught me exactly where I stood in their world, and how I finally learned where I belonged. But to understand how it all unraveled, I have to take you back 8 years, back to when I still believed effort could replace blood. I was 33 when I met Daniel Whitmore. At the time, I was working as a licensed residential contractor, plumbing, renovations, structural repairs. Not glamorous, but steady. I made good money, enough to rent a clean 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Portland and still save aggressively for a future I assumed I'd eventually share with someone. Daniel came into my life unexpectedly. He was 35, freshly divorced, with 3 kids, Logan, 13, Mia, 11, and Sophie, 9. And then there was Rachel, his ex-wife. She was already 4 months behind on child support when we met. Temporary setback, Daniel said. He always said that, about money, about boundaries, about his kids' behavior. Rachel had moved on emotionally long before the divorce papers were signed. Daniel was left holding the emotional debris and the kids. Looking back, I can see how exhausted he was, how grateful he seemed for stability, for someone reliable, for someone like me. Daniel was charming in a quiet way, not flashy, not dramatic. He listened when I talked. He remembered small things, and when he looked at me, I felt chosen. That feeling can make you ignore a lot. 10 months into our relationship, I made what I believed was a loving, grown-up decision. I found a 4-bedroom colonial in the Riverside School District. Big backyard, finished basement, quiet street, the kind of house families grow into. I suggested we move in together. I would handle the down payment. I would cover the mortgage. Daniel would manage groceries and household logistics. We'll be a team, I said. The kids were thrilled. Each of them would finally have their own room. No more sharing walls in Rachel's deteriorating duplex where the landlord never fixed anything and the heat went out twice every winter. I went all in. Logan got a full gaming setup in the basement. Mia got a bright craft room with shelving and natural light. Sophie got a reading nook by the window with built-in shelves and fairy lights. I didn't do it to impress them. I did it because I wanted them to feel safe. For the first year, things felt good. I didn't try to replace their mother. Rachel still had her place, even if she rarely showed up on time. I stayed in my lane. But I was present. I picked them up from school when Daniel worked late, helped with homework, drove to soccer practice, fixed bikes, taught Logan how to unclog a drain, helped Mia prepare for her science fair, sat with Sophie while she struggled through early reading exercises. I loved them. And for a while, I thought they were starting to love me too. But somewhere around year 2, something shifted. It wasn't loud at first. Logan stopped saying thank you. Mia started rolling her eyes when I offered help. Sophie stopped calling me Evie and started using my full name. Daniel noticed. They're just testing boundaries, he said. All kids do this with step-parents. I believed him. I wanted to. Because admitting the truth, that respect was quietly draining out of the room, would have meant questioning everything I was building. And I wasn't ready to do that. Not yet. What I didn't know then was that this house, this family, had been built on something unstable from the very beginning. And foundations like that don't crack loudly. They erode, silently, until one day you realize you've been standing on nothing at all. By the start of the 3rd year, I stopped pretending I didn't feel it. The shift wasn't dramatic. There was no single argument, no explosive moment that forced clarity. It was quieter than that, more unsettling. It was the way I slowly disappeared. When people asked the kids about their family, I noticed how they answered. It's me, my dad, my brother, and my sisters. No pause, no correction. No mention of the woman who paid the mortgage, fixed the house, and rearranged her entire life around them. At Logan's soccer games, I stood on the sidelines every Saturday morning, coffee cooling in my hands, watching him sprint across the field. I had driven him to practice 3 times a week for 2 years straight. Rain, traffic, canceled plans, it didn't matter. But when his teammates' parents came over, Logan introduced Daniel proudly. "This is my dad." And then he turned away. Didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge me, like I was just another parent standing nearby. I told myself it didn't matter, that kids didn't understand nuance, that respect would come with time. So I gave more. When Mia begged to join an elite art academy downtown, the kind with waitlists and tuition that made my stomach tighten, I didn't hesitate. I wrote the check. Told her she was talented, that she deserved it. When Sophie struggled with reading, I didn't just hire a tutor. I researched specialists, found one of the best in Portland, paid for weekly sessions without mentioning the cost. When Logan's car broke down, a used Honda Civic Rachel had helped him buy, I spent an entire Saturday in the driveway rebuilding the engine. 12 hours. Grease under my nails, sunburn on my neck. Free labor, free parts, free patience. And when he drove it away that night, "Whatever," he said. That was it. No thank you, no acknowledgement, just a shrug. Daniel noticed the tension building, but every time I tried to talk about it, he deflected. "They're teenagers," he said. "They're dealing with the divorce. Rachel puts ideas in their heads." But Rachel was barely around. She canceled weekends so often that the kids stopped expecting her. She forgot birthdays, missed school events, promised things she never delivered. I was the one who showed up, and somehow that made me disposable. Thanksgiving that year was the first time the disrespect turned public. Daniel's mother had come to visit, along with his sister and her husband. The table was full, the house warm with food and noise. I had cooked most of the meal, fixed the oven earlier that week when it stopped heating evenly, set the table. Halfway through dinner, Sophie said it. Right there, between the mashed potatoes and the stuffing. "Evelyn's not really family," she announced casually. "She's more like Dad's helper." The room went silent. Daniel's mother froze mid-bite. His sister looked down at her plate. Someone cleared their throat. I looked at Daniel. He laughed awkwardly. "She didn't mean it like that," he said quickly. "Kids say dumb things." Sophie shrugged. "It's true." No one corrected her. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to Daniel breathe beside me, realizing something painful. I had spent years trying to earn a role no one intended to give me. Christmas was worse. I spent nearly $800 on each child, not because I felt obligated, because I wanted them to feel loved. Seen. Logan opened his gaming laptop and frowned. "This isn't the exact model I wanted." Mia glanced at her art supplies. "I guess this is okay." Sophie opened her book set and looked up at me. "Did you keep the receipts?" I felt something twist in my chest. Later that night, I pulled Daniel aside. "I'm trying," I said quietly. "I don't understand what I'm doing wrong." He sighed, irritated. "You're trying too hard. They can sense desperation." Desperation. For wanting to be treated like family in the home I paid for. I should have stopped then, but I didn't. Because part of me still believed effort could fix this. 2 years ago, Daniel and I got married. I told myself that making it official would change things. That the kids would finally see me as permanent, not just Dad's girlfriend who might disappear. The wedding was small but beautiful. Daniel looked proud. The kids participated, but it felt hollow, like obligation instead of joy. At the reception, I overheard Mia talking to her cousin. "Yeah, Dad married Evelyn," she said. "She pays for everything, so I guess it makes sense. Not we love her, not she's good to us, just she pays for everything." After the honeymoon, I asked for a family meeting. Nothing dramatic, just a conversation about expectations, respect, roles. Logan cut me off mid-sentence. "Just because you married our dad doesn't mean you're our mom." Mia nodded. "Yeah, Rachel is our mom, you're just Evelyn." Sophie looked at me, almost apologetic. "You're nice and all," she said, "but you're not really family." Daniel said nothing. Not one word. That night, lying beside my new husband, I felt more alone than I ever had living by myself. The months that followed were brutal in their normalcy. "Evelyn, drive me here. Evelyn, fix this. Evelyn, I need money." "No, please. No, thank you." Just expectation. I started tracking expenses, not out of spite, but clarity. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, phones, streaming services, car insurance, tuition, tutoring, clothes, food. 6 years, nearly $350,000. And then, 3 months ago, I overheard the conversation that killed whatever hope I had left. I came home early from a job in Beaverton. The kids didn't hear me. They were in the kitchen, laughing over boxed mac and cheese. "Evelyn thinks she's our mom," Logan said, snorting. It's embarrassing, Mia replied. She acts like she owns the house, Sophie added, like we should be grateful. Logan laughed. She needs to know her place. This is our house. And Dad just lets her try so hard, Mia said. It's kind of pathetic. They laughed. Not cruelly. Casually. Like I was a joke. Something inside me didn't break. It went quiet. After that afternoon in the hallway, something fundamental shifted inside me. I didn't cry. I didn't confront them. I didn't slam doors or demand apologies. I finished my errands, came home, made dinner. I helped Sophie with her reading, listened to Logan complain about practice, nodded while Mia talked about an art project I was still paying for. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. I realized then that I wasn't heartbroken. I was finished. Still, I gave myself time. Not because they deserved it, but because I needed certainty. I needed to know this wasn't just a bad moment, or teenage cruelty, or miscommunication. So I watched. And what I saw confirmed everything. The kids treated me like live-in help with a debit card. Evelyn, my sink's clogged. Evelyn, I need money for movies. Evelyn, can you drive me? Never could you, never would you mind, never thanks. Daniel noticed I'd gone quiet. You okay? He asked one night. I'm tired, I said. He nodded. That was as deep as it went. I started documenting everything. Not secretly, methodically. Every bill, every transfer, every receipt. 6 years of proof. I had a feeling I was going to need it. The explosion came on a Tuesday. Ordinary, forgettable. Daniel was working late at the hospital. It was just me and the kids. I picked up their usual Chipotle bowls and quesadillas, sat down at the table, trying one last time to exist like a human being in my own home. So, I said, forcing lightness, how was everyone's day? Fine, Logan muttered, eyes glued to his phone. Logan, I said gently, can you put the phone down during dinner? He looked up slowly. His expression wasn't angry. It was contemptuous. You're not my mom, he said. You don't get to tell me what to do. Mia jumped in immediately. Yeah, just because you live here doesn't mean you make the rules. And then Sophie, the one I thought I was closest to, said it. This isn't even your house, she said calmly. It's ours. You need to remember your place. I set my fork down very carefully. My place? I repeated. Logan smirked. Yeah, Dad's wife, that's it. Mia nodded. We already have a mom. We don't need another one. You try too hard, Sophie added. It's uncomfortable. I looked at them. 3 kids I had loved, sacrificed for, built a life around. Kids who were telling me I didn't belong in the house I paid for. You're right, I said quietly. I do need to know my place. They didn't realize what that meant. I stood up, walked into my office, and printed everything. Bank statements, mortgage payments, utility bills, insurance documents, receipts stacked so thick they barely fit into binders. Then I called my lawyer. When Daniel came home that night, I was waiting at the kitchen table, binders neatly arranged. We need to talk, I said. He frowned. What's going on? I pressed play. The recording from earlier that day filled the room. Their voices, their laughter, their certainty that I was nothing. Daniel's face drained of color. They're just kids, he said weakly. I held up a hand. They've been saying this for years. You've heard it. You've never stopped it. He opened his mouth, closed it. I slid the binders across the table. 6 years, I said. $350,000. Not including my labor. Not including my time. Daniel's eyes filled with panic. You can't just walk away. I'm not walking away, I said calmly. I'm respecting their wishes. I told him everything. I was selling my share of the house, transferring utilities, removing myself from insurance, phone plans, streaming services. You're abandoning us, he said. No, I replied. I'm leaving people who made it clear I don't belong. The fallout was immediate. Wi-Fi cut off, car insurance lapsed, art classes canceled. Reality hit hard. Logan was the first to crack. This is insane, he said. We didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did, I said, and that's okay. Your mom can handle it now. Mia tried tears. We're sorry. For what? I asked. Or just sorry it's over. Sophie looked at me, confused. I didn't know you were keeping track of money, she said. That's kind of mean. Even then, I was the villain. I moved out 2 weeks later. A quiet apartment in the Pearl District. Just me, my tools, and peace. The house sold fast. Daniel couldn't afford the mortgage alone. They moved in with his sister. Rachel disappeared again. Letters came. Apologies that never quite named the harm. I didn't respond. 6 months later, Daniel texted. They need you. Things are falling apart. I replied once. They made it clear I wasn't family. Nothing has changed. I blocked the number. A year later, I met someone new, a man who didn't need convincing, who didn't confuse sacrifice with obligation. Last week, Logan, now 19, called. I get it now, he said. We're struggling. Could we meet? I took a breath. I'm not your backup plan, I said gently. You made your choice. I hung up. Some people learn too late that love isn't automatic. And some lessons come only after the foundation is gone. After I moved into the apartment in the Pearl District, silence followed me like an unfamiliar echo. Not the heavy, anxious silence I'd lived with for years, the kind where you're always waiting for the next demand, the next disappointment, but a clean, spacious quiet, the kind that lets you hear your own thoughts again. At first, it was disorienting. No slammed doors, no shouted requests from upstairs, no expectation that I'd fix, fund, or smooth over someone else's chaos. Just me. I unpacked slowly, tools lined up in the hall closet, coffee mug on the counter, a single plant by the window. Everything I owned fit comfortably into the space. No overflow, no resentment hidden in boxes. The first night there, I slept for 10 straight hours. I hadn't done that in years. The fallout, though, was immediate and relentless. Daniel called, texted, left voicemails that shifted in tone by the day. At first, it was disbelief. You can't be serious, Evelyn. This is extreme. They're kids. Then anger. You're punishing them. You're tearing this family apart. You're being selfish. And finally, desperation. They need you. I need you. That one almost broke me. Because there was a time when hearing those words would have been enough to make me turn around, keys in hand, ready to go back and fix everything. But something fundamental had changed. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. The kids felt the consequences before Daniel did. The Wi-Fi shut off midweek. Logan stormed into Daniel's room furious that his online gaming tournament had disconnected. Mia showed up at the art academy only to be told her tuition payment hadn't cleared. She stood there embarrassed, surrounded by students whose parents had never missed a deadline. Sophie's tutoring sessions were canceled without notice. Reality doesn't announce itself gently. It just arrives. Logan showed up at my apartment first. No warning, no call. He stood in the hallway, taller now, jaw tight with frustration. This is messed up, he said. We didn't mean it like that. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Not defensive, just steady. Then how did you mean it? He hesitated. We were just talking. You were deciding who mattered, I replied, and it wasn't me. He scoffed. You're really going to throw everything away over words? I met his eyes. No, I stopped throwing myself away over them. He left without another word. Mia tried next. She cried, real tears this time, said she missed the house, missed stability, missed how things used to be. I listened. Then I asked one question. Do you miss me, or what I provided? She didn't answer. Sophie was the hardest. She sent me a drawing in the mail, purple crayon, stick figures in front of the house, my name written carefully at the bottom. I stared at it longer than I should have. But even that came with a note that stung more than it healed. I didn't know you were keeping track of money, she wrote. That feels kind of mean. Even in her apology, I was still wrong for protecting myself. Daniel held out longer than the kids. He insisted things would change, promised boundaries, therapy, family meetings. But here's what I learned the hard way. Patterns don't disappear because someone finally feels uncomfortable. 6 years of silence doesn't undo itself overnight. The house sold within a month. Daniel couldn't afford the mortgage on his own. Nurses make good money, but not that good. He and the kids moved in with his sister in Gresham. Tension escalated fast. Rachel resurfaced briefly when she realized things were falling apart, then vanished again when responsibility became real. I heard bits and pieces through mutual friends. Logan started skipping school. Mia quit the art academy. Sophie began seeing a counselor. Daniel texted again. They're falling apart. They need stability. They need you. I typed, deleted, typed again. Then sent one sentence. They told me exactly who I was to them. I finally listened. I blocked his number after that. For the first time in years, I chose myself without apology. A year passed. Life settled. I focused on work. Took contracts I'd once turned down because I needed to be home. Saved money. Traveled alone. Learned what my own rhythm sounded like when it wasn't dictated by someone else's needs. And then, unexpectedly, I met Mark. It was nothing dramatic, no sweeping gesture, just a quiet conversation in a coffee shop in Northwest Portland. He listened. He remembered. He didn't assume. When I told him my story, he didn't rush to fix it or minimize it. He just said, "That sounds lonely." It was the first time anyone had named it correctly. We took things slowly, no rushing, no expectations. And when he asked me what I wanted, not what I could give, I realized how long it had been since anyone had cared enough to ask. We're getting married next spring, a small ceremony at Multnomah Falls. Just us. No obligations disguised as love. Sometimes I see Daniel at the grocery store. He looks tired, older. We nod politely and move on. Last week, an unknown number lit up my phone. It was Logan. "I wanted to apologize," he said. "For real this time. I understand now what you did for us." For a moment, my chest tightened. Then he continued. "Mom's struggling. We all are. Rachel hasn't paid support in months. I was hoping maybe we could meet. Talk." I took a slow breath. "I appreciate the apology," I said gently, "but I'm not your safety net. I'm not the place you come back to when everything else collapses." Silence. "You chose who I was to you," I continued. "I finally chose who I needed to be to myself." I hung up before he could respond. People ask me sometimes if I regret leaving. If I feel guilty. If I ever wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed and tried harder. But here's the truth. You can't love someone into respecting you. You can't sacrifice your way into belonging. And you can't build a life on a foundation that excludes you. They told me to know my place. I did. And it was anywhere I was valued, not tolerated. The strange thing about walking away is that the world doesn't end when you do. For years, I'd lived with this quiet fear, humming beneath everything, that if I stopped giving, stopped fixing, stopped absorbing other people's messes, everything would collapse. That somehow their lives were balanced on my effort alone. In a way, they were. But that wasn't my responsibility anymore. After I blocked Daniel's number, the silence returned, but this time it stayed. No late-night calls, no guilt-laced messages, no emergencies disguised as emotional blackmail. Just space. And in that space, I finally began to understand how deeply I'd been conditioned to equate love with endurance, to believe that if something hurt, it must be important, that if I was exhausted, it meant I was doing it right. Mark noticed the shift before I did. "You don't flinch anymore," he said one night as we cooked dinner together. "You used to brace yourself whenever your phone buzzed." He was right. I hadn't realized how tightly wound I'd been, how every notification used to feel like a summons. Another problem. Another demand wearing the mask of family. With Mark, nothing was owed. He didn't need me to prove my worth, didn't measure my love by what I could provide, didn't confuse my competence with obligation. When I paid for something, it was because I wanted to. When I helped, it was appreciated, not expected. That difference mattered more than I ever imagined. A few months before our wedding, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Daniel was struggling badly. The kids were still living with his sister. Tensions were high. Logan had dropped out of high school and was working nights at a warehouse in Tigard. Mia had taken a job at a fast food place after quitting the art academy. Sophie's grades were slipping despite counseling. Rachel was nowhere to be found. Part of me felt a flicker of sadness. Not guilt, not regret, just sadness. Because I had loved those kids, truly, and love doesn't evaporate just because you finally stop letting it hurt you. But sadness isn't a reason to go back. A week before the wedding, another letter arrived. This one was from Daniel. He wrote about how hard things had become, about how he hadn't realized how much I did until I was gone, about how the kids talked about me now, how they finally saw the gap I'd left behind. "I should have protected you," he wrote. "I should have made them respect you. I'm sorry I didn't." I read it once. Then I folded it and put it away. Because apologies that arrive after the damage is done aren't bridges. They're acknowledgments. And acknowledgments don't require a response. Our wedding day was quiet and perfect. Mist rising from Multnomah Falls. Just a handful of people who knew us, not because of obligation, but because of choice. When Mark took my hands and looked at me, there was no doubt in his eyes, no calculation, no silent expectation of what I would give up to be there, only certainty. Later that evening, as we stood together listening to the water rush behind us, he asked softly, "Do you ever wonder if they'll call again?" I thought about it. "They might," I said, "but that doesn't change anything." Because here's what I finally understood, something it took me over 40 years to learn. Knowing your place doesn't mean shrinking. It doesn't mean accepting less. It doesn't mean staying where you're tolerated because leaving might inconvenience someone else. Knowing your place means choosing environments where your presence isn't questioned, where love isn't transactional, where respect isn't conditional, where you don't have to earn the right to belong. The kids learn something too, eventually. They learned that stability doesn't come from blood alone, that showing up matters, that devotion isn't guaranteed just because you share a last name. They learned it too late to keep me in their lives, but not too late to carry the lesson forward. As for me, I finally stopped trying to prove I was family and started living like I already was. My name is Evelyn Harper, and I know my place now. It's with people who see my love not as weakness, but as a gift.